What's going on, everybody? It's Murph. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be talking more about the War Scourge and what characters to start building now if you're struggling with certain traits for the War Scourge, and essentially how they can tie into other Scourges, and that way you can build your account in the most efficient way possible. Yesterday, we talked about the skill characters, and again, this is more for new to early game players who this is their first go around with the scourges, and maybe their rosters aren't as wide or as built out to handle them right now, and so they're finding themselves struggling with bio nodes or skill nodes or villain nodes or whatever else. This top 10 list, this guide is meant to give you ideas of what to start building and how different characters can kind of synergize together for these teams so you can push through and get the most bang for your buck. All right, let's get into it. So first off, our first character that I want to talk about is one that if you're struggling with this, you probably don't have unlocked yet. But this is more for the later game players. If you're watching this video, obviously, if you unlock Red Hulk during the event, build him. I've already got him at Gear 16 on my main account, and I've used him in the early bio nodes going back through the Scourge, and he's just absolutely phenomenal. He deals a shit ton of damage, and if you're able to fill out that team with the rest of the Gamma characters, they're great. I mean, there's not a whole lot of tier 4 information out there yet because he's such a new character. But I started off with his passive as well as his ultimate just to get that battlefield effect, gamma radiation, a bit buffed out. And then I think I've got everything except for his basic tier 4 already, which I'll be tier 4ing that this week once I get the abilities for it. And as far as ISOs go, I run Brawler on him. He's supposed to be your damage dealer. He's going to be a striker, period. It's going to deal the most damage. Now, in the last video, someone made a comment about the whole Raider versus Striker thing and Raider dealing more damage. And yes, technically, Raider does deal more damage than Striker. However, you have to factor in how crit chance and crit damage factor into that character's kit. Do they actually get bonuses for that? Or do their teams give them, passive bonuses that increase their crit damage or other things like Shang-Chi, for instance? We talked about that in the last video. He gets deflect, and whenever himself and his teammates crit. So or characters like Iron Man, where Iron Man gets a natural crit boost from his passive, and so do I think the rest of the Bionic Avengers with him from his passive. So when it comes down to Striker versus Raider, Striker is better in almost every single format. Maybe not mathematically, because Raider does do, I think it's like a fractional amount of damage more than Striker, but you cannot crit through Deflect. And Deflect is such a prevalent buff on enemy characters in the game right now that if you're attacking a character with Deflect, you cannot crit on them, rendering your Raider entirely useless. And you got to find that balance of your team of being able to set up those vulnerables and being able to exploit those vulnerables for damage. All right, next character, the real number one character we want to talk about here is Hulk. So again, with these lists, I'm not really including villains on these trait specific nodes because so far villains are required for all three scourges, and if you're building villains and you're a newer player, you don't have access to a lot of the stronger villains out there, so you're gonna probably have to save your villains for those later nodes that require villains. I will mention a couple of villains here during this video, but primarily we're focusing on like hero bio characters. But the first one is a character that you will automatically unlock and get throughout playing the game. It's going to be Hulk. You're going to get his shards through the achievement system in game. So you can't really actively farm him, but he is free to play. And if you find yourself like needing to build out your Hulk further and like you have certain achievements that are really close, like spending blitz credits or raid credits or whatever, you can then target farm him that way. But I use Striker on him because even though he is a protector, he's going to deal a lot of damage for this team. And with Striker as well, he's going to be doing a lot of counterattack damage, so it's going to boost all of his regular attack damage. And does he have piercing on his abilities? I don't recall. No, he doesn't. He just hits really, really fucking hard. Okay, so Hulk. Hulk is great. He's a tank and he deals a bunch of damage for your team. Use him, and if you're able to use him, you probably want to build out the rest of the Gamma team too. They're going to be the next couple characters I talk about. But as far as Hulk, you can use him in the Pestilence Scourge for the hero nodes. You cannot use him during Famine because he doesn't have that. What were the Famine tags again off the top of my head? Not off the top of my head, I have them written down. So City, Mutant, Villain, and Mystic Cosmic are what we're using for Famine nodes. You can't use them in Famine, but you can use them in both Pestilence and in the the War Scourge. So that's 2 out of the 3 current Scourges. Unknown on Death so far. He's also the Gamma team is a war team, so I'm kind of mentioning other game modes that these are good in. He's also a Horseman team character, so he's part of the Red Hulk Gamma Horseman of War team. You have to build him to gear 15 or 17 in order to get Apocalypse later on, so why not build him now and use him during the event? And something else to mention too is that he's a Wave 1 Avenger. I lost my train of thought for a second. So he is a Wave 1 Avenger, so you do have to consider during the War Scourge, nodes 5 and 10, what characters are you bringing into those? Because again, nodes 5 and 10 for War, you need Heroes Guardians, Wave 1 Avengers, or Ravagers, or a combination of them. And personally, I actually saw a lot of benefit of running Hulk in this sort of Wave 1 Avengers slash Heroes Guardians combo team. So if that's something that you choose to do, and you do want to use him for nodes 5 and 10, just know that you're going to have to be careful and really pay attention to those bio nodes on the first couple, because you're going to have to keep an eye on his abilities so that you don't go into nodes 5 and 10 with your abilities on cooldown, or, you know, not having just used them, so you have to wait multiple turns to use them once you get to those next nodes. And 2, that obviously he doesn't die or lose a shit ton of health and go into that node very weak. So just keep that in the back of your mind, and that's those considerations are the same reason why I'm not mentioning a whole lot of villains during this, because it does take a whole lot of extra care and attention to detail while you're playing those earlier nodes if you plan on using those same characters in multiple nodes, even though that might be the most efficient way to build your roster, which is what we're talking about. Anyways, I digress. The next character that I want to talk about is going to be SheHulk. So SheHulk is also Gamma. Obviously, we're just going in order of this team. If you're going to run a Gamma character, you might as well run multiple of them on this bio node. And actually, personally, I saw better benefit of using Gamma over Web Warriors on, I think it was the first node, and the second node, Web Warriors did just fine for me. But for SheHulk, she's a city protector Gamma hero, which means you can use her in Pestilence for heroes, you can use her in Famine for city characters, and you can use her in War as bio. So you can use her in all 3 Scourges. You can also use her in City Dark Dimension, which I didn't mention for Global Dark Dimension for Hulk, but for SheHulk at least. Once you get into City for Dark Dimension, with the current way that we have to build characters for Horsemen, it's difficult to find certain characters that don't overlap on gear with your Horseman characters. So, like for instance, one of the more prevalent strategies for City Dark Dimension nodes was to just build your Web Warriors. Well, Web Warriors is hard to build now, even though they're still your bio raid team and you do want to build them to a certain extent for Doom raids. It's difficult to push them too far because you are pulling pieces off of your Gamma team in order to build up your Web Warriors. So she can help you out with City, because there's not a whole lot of like amazing City characters for you to use that are Horseman characters right now. Horsemen, from off the top of my head, they typically cover Global and Cosmic so far. There aren't a whole lot of City characters out there. So this is one you can just lock in, build, and use for that. She's another tank just like Hulk. She deals a good amount of damage and control. She has a stun. Her ISOs, I'm running Skirmisher on her right now. And as far as her abilities go for tier 4, I haven't tier 4 any of her abilities yet. And I really haven't honestly looked at them, but there will be a graphic on all these characters, like while after the videos in editing, of showing kind of the MSFGG recommended T4s. Refer to that, you know, whatever. Take whatever information that you will. MSFGG is just a collaboration of everybody listed on there. It doesn't mean that this is the best tier 4 for it. It just means that this is what the most people have tier 4'd, and there are a lot of dumb people who play this game, and I'm probably one of them. I'm a fucking idiot. So, really, like, good rule of thumb for tier 4s with characters, if you're just trying to minimally put them on certain characters throughout the team, just go for their passives first, because their passives tend to benefit the entire team that they are supposed to be ran with. So that's a good jumping off point, just to get the passes for them and then start looking at, you know, what else. Personally, for Horseman characters, I'm just tier 4ing fucking everything on every Horseman team and character, but whatever. Moving on. Oh, Gamma, again, because I forgot to mention it, is for the War game mode. Next character is the last Gamma character we're going to talk about here. It's going to be Brawn. Now, I'm just now starting to build Brawn on the side a little bit whenever I have resources freed up because I'm still trying to build out my skill team because that's currently where I'm struggling. But for Brawn, he's going to be your Squirrel Girl equivalent for Gamma. I have not used him yet, so I can't speak too too in depth like of my opinion of him because I just haven't ran him. I don't know yet, but obviously he's going to be part of your Horseman characters. Again, you're going to have to build him. He's another global bio character, so you can use him for your global dark dimensions. He's a war character, part of your Horseman, and he's going to carry the same tags as Hulk, which means that you can use him in the Pestilence Saga for heroes. You can use him in War as Gamma, and with him, you don't have to worry about the nodes 5 and 10 consideration because he's not a Wave 1 Avenger. Now, next up, we're going to talk about our second tier of characters for this. And again, it's going to be an entire team of characters. So we'll talk about the Web Warriors one on one, right? So first off, we've got Miles. Now, Miles, I'm running Brawl on him, but that might not be the best option. I really haven't looked at my Web Warriors ISO 8s in a hot minute, so a lot of them might be questionable. But Miles is great. He does a lot of control. You get a stealth. You can do turn meter removal. You can do disrupt on enemies to block the buffs from coming out and AoE damage. All that. He pairs well with Ghost Spider. It's great. And one thing that all the Web Warriors have is you can use them for every single Scourge, and they're part of your Bio Raid team for Doom. So what that means is these characters are absolutely worth building. They're probably going to be your first raid team you get as far as like the current raid teams that are out there right now. Miles can be farmed on a hero node daily, and you can farm him out of the Blitz store too. So he's a very, very quick build, or very quick farm rather. Again, he's bio, so he is going to take gear from your Gamma characters if you're building him, same as the rest of the Web Warriors. His intended use is going to be raid. If you're going to use Web Warriors, obviously you're going to want to build him up. And next up, what I want to talk about is going to be our next Web Warrior, and that'll be Scarlet Spider. Scarlet Spider is going to deal a lot of damage for this team. He's going to continue debuffs. Like he prolongs the duration of debuffs. He has a gigantic AoE attack that's going to debuff, or not debuff, dispel all the enemies' buffs if they have speed down on them, which multiple characters apply speed down on this team. I'm running Raider on him. Again, tier fours. I built Web Warriors like my first team, and when you first hit like the mid-level 60s, you get a shit ton of free tier 4 abilities, and I dumped pretty much all of them into Web Warriors early on just so I could have a strong raid team. He's currently farmable out of the War store, so if you have to farm him, you can build, or you can, hoard your credits and farm him there whenever he pops up. And I'm not going to talk too much further about him because he's the same information for all these Web Warriors, right? They're all city, they're all hero, they're all bio, so you can use them in all pestilence, famine, and war. So they might be the most efficient characters to build right now for your Scourges. Ghost Spider is currently farmable out of the arena store for 975 credits, which is very expensive, I know, but we did get a lot of free shards from her, from anything from the battle passes in the game to the raid milestone rewards. She's great. She's a huge, huge amount of damage for this team through her counters, through her ultimate, which basically you point her ultimate at whatever character has the most debuffs on it, and she spreads them to every other character while attacking them. It's great. She also does a counterattack whenever one of your Web Warriors is hit, and I think she has like an assist ability with Miles off top, but I might be wrong with that. But yeah, she's great. She's also vigilant, so you can run her currently during the Spider Weaver event, and I think Scarlet Spider does as well. So both these characters you can also build for the other event that's going on right now. That's also feeding into the monthly milestone for Abomination. Tier 4s again, passive. And then if you feel like getting her ultimate up, that's great too. Next character, let's talk about SpiderPunk. SpiderPunk, same thing. You can run with all 3 Scourges for City, Bio, and the Hero, City, and Bio. And one thing I didn't mention, we're on our third Web Warrior. I didn't mention it. They're one of the required node 5 and 10 teams for the Pestilence Scourge. So not only can you run them for the hero nodes, you can also run them for, or was it hero or city? It's one of the two. It's heroes. So not only can you run them for the heroes nodes, you can also run them nodes 5 and 10. So we're not really talking about Pestilence, we're talking about War right now. But if you build them for Pestilence, you can also run them for 4 total nodes on that. You just got to be careful about, running them too hard on the ground on those hero nodes. They're not available in nodes 5 and 10, whatever. Again, passive. I kind of want to change him to striker just because we don't have a lot of strikers right now on this team, at least the way I've built them, and I think it's going to be much more worth it than Raider. This is just what MSFGG said, I think, before, if I remember correctly. I don't, again, who knows? It's not the greatest information to pull from. Next character we'll talk about is going to be Spider-Man, OG Spider-Man. Again, so I didn't mention it for SpiderPunk. He's currently farmable out of the Arena Orb. Spider-Man is farmable out of just the Blitz store, so he's a very quick farm. Again, tier 4 is passive. Again, City, Bio, and Web Warriors, so you can use them in Pestilence, Famine, and War. Pestilence, again, you can run them for the Heroes nodes and for the nodes 5 and 10 required characters, so just be careful if you're running them for that. Again, Web Warriors are Bio Raid team, and you can use it for City Dark Dimension as well. So they're just based off of like kind of the way I'm looking at it between Bio versus Gamma for these Bio nodes for War is you have to build your Gamma team for the Horseman sagas, for the Apocalypse sagas. But Web Warriors has the most reach as far as other required game modes in it. So it's kind of a pick your poison thing. If you have the luxury, build both of them and just swap them out if as needed. Now, next up, what I want to talk about is kind of this duo here that is going to be absolutely phenomenal for these nodes. Squirrel Girl first, Hero, City, Bio, right? So same tags as the Web Warriors, so you can use her in Pestilence, Famine, and War, just like the Web Warriors. She's a Young Avenger, and Young Avengers are a required Node 5 and 10 team for Famine, so the same rules apply between Famine and, or the same rules apply with Young Avengers for Famine as Web Warriors for Pestilence. So you can run her for City during the Famine Scourge, and you can run her for the Nodes 5 and 10, along with the rest of the Young Avengers, Inhumans, and A-Force. So again, just be wary if you're running her in the Famine Scourge that if you're going to run her for the City nodes, be careful because you're going to need her for the Nodes 5 and 10. You don't have that issue with Bio. What you do have that issue with, with War. What issue you do run into with War is there are two nodes for Avengers characters. Now, Young Avengers is probably, in my opinion, if you don't want to pull your Wave 1 Avengers for those nodes, Young Avengers and Bionic Avengers are your two best options for running those nodes right now. So if you're going to run her for the Bio nodes, again, it's like Bio nodes are 1 and 2, Avengers are 3 and 4 in the War Scourge. So if you're going to run her for Bio, make sure that you're very careful with her, keep her abilities, at least off cooldown or very close to like 1 or 2 turns in for being available for those Avengers nodes if you plan on using Young Avengers for those nodes. I have Healer on her. Healer might be overkill, just like with Maria Hill in the last one, but that's just personally what I use on her. I could actually see a lot of benefit with Striker being on her as well. And what else? Am I missing anything else? Young Avengers is a war team, and I already said they're famine required. So let's talk about our other Young Avenger character. So again, like I mentioned in the last video, if you don't have access to an entire team to run during this Scourge for these traits, at a minimum, you do want to run like 2 or 3. If you can pull 2 or 3 characters from one team and run them together, they will synergize together, and your team will be that much stronger for these Scourge events. So if you're going to run Squirrel Girl, you're going to want to run Miss Marvel with her. Now, Miss Marvel is going to assist on pretty much all the Young Avenger, and I think it's Brawler attacks, if I remember right. Yeah, gain assist now on each Young Avenger or Hero Brawler ally's turn. So if you're running Brawlers with her, which, by the way, most of the Web Warriors are Brawlers, so you can run like a very good combo of Squirrel Girl, Miss Marvel, and then maybe Spider-Man Miles because he also carries Young Avenger tag, and then pick 2 other Web Warriors like Ghost Spider and OG Spidey or something like that, or run them with Gamma. I don't know, whatever. But she's great. She provides ability energy. She taunts. She assists and calls for assists with Squirrel Girl. She's great. I've actually found a lot of use with her in this current Scourge because, again, like I said, you can run them for Bio and for Avengers. So, like on my main account, I'm basically just running them for the Bio nodes. And then on this account that we're following here, I'm just running Young Avengers for the Avenger nodes. So she's getting a lot of use in this Scourge for me personally. An honorable mention that I do want to throw in here is Phyla-Vell. If you have built Infinity Watch already for your early arena team, she's not a bad addition. The only problem is that there aren't any other Infinity Watch characters for you to pull in for her to get that further synergy with. So she's kind of just a standalone. Like if you need one more character to plug in and that isn't going to synergize with anybody, she's fine to put in. But I really wouldn't recommend going out of your way to build her for this, just because outside of this game mode for Scourges, um, I mean, not even in Scourges, they're not really useful for Scourges, period. But Infinity Watch is very quickly in the entire kind of meta game right now, seeing a fall from grace with all these revive once block abilities coming in, and they're just getting phased out of gameplay right now. So now's not the time to build her, but if you're close or you need that one extra character, you might be able to build her for it. Um, and then the last team I want to talk about here, and I'm just going to talk about it briefly because I don't have a lot of experience with them. It's just going to be your symbiotes. So symbiotes, they're all bio. I believe they're all bio, right? Because we've got Carnage, we've got Scream, we've got Anti Venom, we've got Symbiote Spidey, we've got what's our last one? Venom. There he is. So yeah, your symbiote, you can run them. They're kind of your budget web warriors, and actually they're, from what I'm hearing over Discord and a lot of other content coming out right now, is that symbiote is bar none like the best team to run for nodes 1 and 2 for the War Scourge right now. So if you want to build them for it, you can. However, I would just caution you that they're not that good in the greater game itself. And again, when you build these bio characters, you're pulling gear from your Gamma Horseman team, which means it's going to be more difficult to build that team in the long run. Um, but do keep it in your back pocket that Symbiotes has been widely talked about the last week or so, that this is like the best team for you to run for those um, first two bio nodes. And one thing too to mention, I've been talking about running them for other scourges as well. They're all cities, so you can run them all for, I believe it's the Famine Scourge. And some of them you can run during Pestilence, but they don't all carry hero traits. Like, obviously, you can see here that Carnage is a villain, Venom is a villain. I believe Anti Venom is a hero, Scream is a villain. So during the hero nodes, if you in hero nodes during Pestilence, you can run Anti Venom, and I believe you can run Spider-Man Symbiote. Yes, you can run Spider-Man Symbiote with him too. So you can run like a twofer with them, and then just bring in other hero characters if you choose to. But again, if you haven't built them yet, I don't know if I would recommend building them because it's going to take a minute. We don't have a lot of time left in this Scourge, and really these videos are about building the most efficient way to be successful throughout all of the wings of Scourges so far. So that's going to cover it for today, guys. The next video I'm going to put out is probably going to be a villains related video for all the villains you can run during all of these Scourges, but mainly focusing on the War Scourge. I'm kind of doing all these videos today and putting them out throughout the week. So it should be Monday if you're watching this video. Come back tomorrow, you'll see villains. Let me know what you guys are running for bio down in the comments. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more. And thank you guys. Have a good week.